So, couple of things. I want to talk quickly through the test format on what to expect. Yeah.
Wait, what'd you say?
Yeah, next class.
That's a joke.
Well, you don't want to do it during Irish week on a shortened schedule, do you?
Is it long? No, that's not that long. That's
All of you guys take like 90 minutes every time.
So is the I feel like I finished it. So is the half
Today,
What? Why are we gonna do that? Tomorrow morning?
right after the quiz.
What? What about tomorrow morning before the other class takes exams? Yeah.
I'd prefer to have it today.
But like,
At the very latest.
All right. Can I get through this stuff that I want to do before you guys bombard me with like complaints about everything else that's going on?
Guys, let's just be happy we're alive. I mean, why not us?
So
It can all
that's why.
we all get 100.
And I have to do this.
for the you should be able to use the rational zeros theorem to make a list of all the possible rational zeros for a function. So it's the factors of the constant term divided by the factors of the leading coefficient, right? Should be able to use the fundamental theorem of algebra to determine the total number of zeros for a function, just the degree. Should be to use proper limit notation to describe the end behavior of a function. Just talk about what the left arrow is doing and the right arrow is doing. Should be able to use your calculator to find the coordinates of the extrema for a function. What does extrema mean? Maxes and mins, right? You should be able to use your calculator to find the real zeros for a function. When I say zeros, what does that mean on the graph? Zeros is x-intercepts, right? Where a graph crosses the x-axis. If I give you a polynomial function and an interval, you should be able to show that all the real zeros lie within the given interval. What am I talking about there? If we look at our lesson from last time, it was, where did you go? This guy right here, like example 13, right? Show that I lie within the interval. All you had to do was 2 synthetic divisions and look at the pattern of the numbers at the end of the synthetic division. Given a list of zeros and a leading coefficient, write the lowest degree polynomial possible. Again, we did just like last time where, let's see, where did you go? Yeah, like here. So you have some zeros. You need to make it into a polynomial. What did I tell you about this polynomial here? On test time, that's good enough. Right? You don't have to FOIL it out. And then the last type of thing you need to be able to do is find all the zeros for a polynomial function, which is just like, I don't know, the last 20 problems from the homework set. We're all like, find all the zeros, right? Clarification on any of this, what to expect. Did this all look familiar? Almost all of this you do last year in Algebra 2, right? Ideally, we still remember those things, or at least like, okay, now that we did it, I can remember doing it. Okay. I'll start with questions from homework. At this point, we've assigned it all. Does anyone have questions from homeworks that you want to ask about? Reagan.
Okay, so this is like what I do, but
That's okay.
from the delta math.
Uh-huh.
there's like one section where like it's like words and then you have to fill in the blanks, but I do not understand.
Words that you had to fill in the blank.
Yeah, it's like the fourth section maybe, something like that. I don't know what it's called.
Let's see.
Okay, tell me that much, it's all I need to know. Not good.
This one?
No, it's like the determined one.
This one. Oh, you think this one?
No. Yeah.
Going, where's the left?
Okay.
So we're sort of that.
It's negative.
I don't know that part. It's the second half.
So this is what you're using, is this criteria here from the first set of notes. So both ends point up, it's even and the leading coefficient is positive. Both ends point down, the degree is even and the leading coefficient is negative, et cetera, et cetera. So if I go back and I look at this, both ends are pointing down, so I know the degree is even and the leading coefficient is negative. If I look at the picture, I see 1, 2, 3 real zeros, because I see 3 places where it touches the x-axis. And I see 1, 2, 3 relative extrema.
Okay.
The humps are the extremas.
Okay.
That's it.
Never mind.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I get it.
Okay. Again, I tried to pick things that like shouldn't have been mega time consuming, considering you had some polynomial division to do at the end. I tried to pick the other things that were like just kind of like, do you know this or not? Like just some vocab kind of stuff. Okay. Other homework questions? Does anybody else have stuff? Obviously, Delta math is fine. We can ask about that for sure. Yeah, Lexi.
Could you do one from 24 to 27?
Yeah, sure. 24 through 27.
Yeah, it's so overpowered.
You're not sure. It's like in the middle.
So let's just do 24. That's an even. You don't have the answer to it. The idea here is I'm just going to do polynomial division and see if I get 0 for my remainder. So for 24, what number goes on the outside here for the polynomial division? -1. Great. And you got that by taking your x plus 1, setting it equal to 0, and solving, right? What numbers go on the inside? And that's it. I don't have to worry about any zeros because I have degree 3, degree 2, degree 1, and degree 0, right? Everything's in order. So I bring down, multiply, add down, multiply, add down, multiply, add down. Since I get a remainder 0, I know that that's a factor. Cool? If you have one where the leading coefficient isn't 1, what do you do? Yeah, you have to do long division there, but you're still looking for the same thing, a remainder 0. You can actually get away with doing synthetic division if it's degree 1. You just have a fraction to run through your synthetic division, which is kind of a hassle, but might be nicer than long division still for you. Lexi, does that feel good?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you guys able to do synthetic division consistently, quickly, and correctly? You'll definitely want to be able to do that for the test. No.
Yeah, what are we like getting quizzed on?
Probably homework,
Thanks.
I got you.
Like, is it a long division?
Is it like calculator work?
It's a lot of calculator work.
It's like finding zeros, finding extrema, like some.
There'll be some of that stuff in there for sure.
And then like, is there gonna?
Yeah, right now.
I don't know that was polynomials.
How do you
That
know
was
global or like global or relative? Like,
oh, is that could be on
how do you know?
So
Is it?
if I look at this guy, A, local or global, max or min?
Local.
Local, max. How do you know it's local and not global?
Because there's another one higher.
Because there's stuff higher than it over here.
It's not globally, it's not the biggest in the world.
How
There's
about
another one
B,
in the world
local,
bigger.
global, max or min?
Would that be global?
That's-
and
This is just local, min, because look, over here, that stuff is lower,
Oh, so
right? How about this one, local, global, max or min?
Global max.
Global max.
There it is.
You guys feel okay on that then?
Yeah.
That's, again, it's not too hard. We're just looking at a picture and kind of describing what we see. Is it the highest point of all the points?
Yes.
Then it's then it's global. If it's just the highest in its area, in its own neighborhood, you know, like if I just look right around here, A is the highest point right in that little section. But if we can expand it, it's not the highest point of all the sections, right? So local is like in your neighborhood. Are you the big dog or little dog if it's a minimum? Global is like, nope, I'm the biggest of all the biggies or the smallest of all the smallies. Is there a global minimum here on this picture?
Oh, because it goes down to infinity.
Yeah, no, because the arrows are pointing down to infinity, right?
Can you do like I think it's the one. Yeah, the infinity stuff.
Okay.
I know
So-
I get so lost.
This arrow is the left arrow, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to the left and up. If you want to write this as a point, what would its x coordinate be? Negative infinity, because it's going to the left forever, right? And what would its y coordinate be? Positive infinity, because it's going up forever. Everybody agree with that?
What's going on though?
I'm just talking about this arrow. I'm just talking about this one right here. So this is x goes to negative infinity, y goes to positive infinity. Or you'd say the limit, and then underneath you'd have x arrow negative infinity, f of x, and then equals positive infinity. That's the other way to write it. If we look at this right arrow, what's the x going to? Positive infinity, because we're going to the right forever. And the y is going to positive infinity, because the arrow is going up forever. So I want positive and positive, and then negative and positive. Nope. Positive, positive, negative and positive. That'll do. Done. So I'm just looking at what the arrows are doing. The left arrow is talking about the x. The right arrow is is the x at negative infinity, right? The right arrow is x at positive infinity. And then if that left arrow is pointing up, it's going to positive infinity. If it's pointing down, it's going to negative infinity. The x approaches is just telling you which arrow are you talking about, the left end or the right end. What the limit is equal to is telling you if the arrow is pointing up or pointing down. Is that what you guys, does that feel okay? And again, on the test, I'm going to ask you to give me like the limit, right? So you always have two of them, because there's always going to be a right end and a left end. We have to fill in this spot, and then this spot and that spot. If this is the left arrow, that spot's always going to be negative infinity. if this is the right arrow, that spot's always going to be positive infinity. And then depending on if we're pointing up or down, these could be positive or negative infinities. I'll put a little question mark there to say that like you have to fill that part in based on your picture. But this part should be like automatic, right? You know you're going to have one of each. Doesn't matter the order you list them. You could start with the right end first and then the left end second. Whatever, I don't care. You just have to have both ends described. But you always have one of each. Because there's always two ends to your graph, right? Is that okay there? Again, most of this stuff isn't hard. You just have to like remember the symbols and kind of what stuff means, right? Talking through it again, no problem. Happy to do it. Did that help, though, kind of running through that? Again, hopefully it doesn't feel hard, right? Just like, oh, that's all that means? Yeah, that's all that means. You just have to remember the symbols or whatever. Anybody else with questions? Okay. Very good. Let's do our homework quiz then. You will need a graphing calculator to do this because there is stuff that I ask you to graph on your calculator. I am out of graphing calculator, so don't ask me. You might have to wait for your neighbor to finish and borrow their calculator if you don't currently have one. If you don't currently have one, I will tell you, shame on you. Like, find your graphing calculator that you have at home, get it into your backpack. Needs to come to school with you every day.
I left mine in my account.
How long do you think? Just need to get one. Got to school. You come with us every day. Probably need to come home, back home with you every day. I know, we have to carry this thing around. It's like one more thing. Just, you know, every day. Do the stuff you can without the calculator, but if you need a calculator, you don't have one, wait for somebody to finish and borrow theirs. Best I can do for you is all of my calculators are spoken for already. Apologies.
Am I supposed to graph how to do that?
Huh?
Bloop.